Welcome to Women in B2B Marketing, a show where CMOs, VPs of marketing, and all strong women leaders in B2B discuss their top tactics, strategies, and tips for building high-performing teams, leveraging trends, and ultimately rocking their marketing careers. Made by and for women, insightful for all. I'm your host and 15-year B2B marketer, Jane Serra. Let's dive in. Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining us for another episode of Women in B2B Marketing. I'm super excited for our conversation today. We have with us Talya Heller, who is the Competitive Positioning Advisor and founder at Down to a T, her company, which, by the way, happy anniversary, happy 1-year birthday, just turned 1 this week, right?
Thank you. Yes.
Yay. Congratulations. Big milestone. So Talya is going to talk to us all about a ton of things and her story, but really cool. She started out as a project manager, turned into the product side of things, a product manager, and then into the world of product marketing. So really cool journey there. I haven't talked to anyone with that kind of path before. So welcome to the show, Talya. I'm so excited to dive in.
Thank you so much, Jane. I'm super excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yay. Of course. So tell us, how did you get into the world of B2B marketing and competitive positioning and product marketing? How'd you get here today?
Oh, okay. As you mentioned, yes, I started my career. I'm an industrial engineer. That's what I got a degree out of undergrad.
Oh, it starts even cooler. I didn't even catch that part. So cool.
Yeah, I was kind of looking I do have that analytical process-oriented brain, but I also am very much a people's person, and I didn't want to be the type of engineer that sits in a lab all day, which is kind of what I saw even before undergrad in my military service and with my parents and all of that. So anyway, industrial engineering, yes, I started working as a PMO at HP, planning on control, worked with different parts of the organization at a really big company. Is actually a great, super cool learning opportunity to really know how a company operates. I worked with finance, with ops, with marketing, with engineering, really with almost everyone at the organization. Then I was tapped on the shoulder to do product work there, which was kind of cool and kind of hard to say no to because, I wasn't a developer like people who usually took that job were. So definitely a big learning opportunity there as well, but one that was kind of too good to pass on. And then again, like a few years doing that, I actually kind of felt like I was missing the business. So as a PMO, I actually was really close to seeing how big strategic decisions are being made. I used to present in management meetings all the time. And I miss that because when you're doing product, you're for sure doing lots of cool and interesting work and you have a ton of ownership, which I really wanted. You spend a lot of your time being super tactical, prioritizing tasks and like solving issues, putting out fires, all these things.
Yeah.
So I did want something that kind of brought me back to the business. At that time, there were a few other things in our life that were happening. My husband and I decided to the US and I went to grad school and got my MBA.
Oh, congrats.
Thank you. Yeah. And it was kind of like also like not something that I was planning or really like aspiring to do. That's a whole backstory, but good advice from a mentor that I had years before that like 3 years later kind of became relevant. And we decided to go for it and to try to move here and see what it's like. And honestly, when that happened and when I was in grad school, I had no idea what I wanted to do. Everyone that were in tech wanted to do product. I already did that.
Yeah.
I knew I don't want to do that. I wasn't sure what's the name of the thing that I wanted to do. And then during that time, I was part of the tech group, like MBAs, and we organized a bunch of events. And one of them was a panel. And we had a bunch of alumni come and talk at that event. And one of them was a product marketer. And when she explained what she does, all the light bulbs in my head went up. And I was like, bingo, that's exactly it. Because it's still product, which I love. But you're so much closer to the market and to customers and to the business and to strategy, which I really wanted to be close to. And then once that happened, I just kind of went brute force into that direction and networked my way into part-time internships and part-time gigs during grad school and then into the startup scene here in Austin, basically.
Yeah. So cool. I'm kind of going to jump around a bit here because I know that there's something we were talking about before we turned the mic on, and you're touching on it now, that how important in your career the power of networking has been, and your network for getting jobs. And even now I'm seeing finding what you want for your next job, right? Like your next career step. So can you talk to us a little bit about that and when you realized how important that networking piece is?
Oh, for sure. And funny enough, so the first part of my career, I was doing none of that. So,
Yeah.
how I got all my jobs before, where I would apply, I would interview, I would be good enough and get the job,
Yeah.
get promotion, and kind of like doing that like very linear path. But I think it was when we actually moved here,
Yeah.
was when things changed and it triggered all of that, because I literally moved to a country where I have zero family, zero connections, zero network, and I had to
Yep.
figure it out.
Yeah.
And let me tell you, being an international student in 2016 was not an easy thing. That was
Wow.
not the climate.
Yeah. Actually, yeah. Putting two and two together there. Yep.
Yep. Just
That's
a few
around when I
months.
married my husband to keep him in the US. I hear you. We were like,
And I will say that grad schools in the US are very good about, like MBA programs here are very much about distilling that networking. Like that's a core activity. Like, sure,
Yeah.
you have classes and you have to pass and all of that, like clubs that you can be involved, you can be involved in the community, and like all of like these things are important. But like, what are you even doing here if you're not networking? And they really encourage that, and they really teach you how to like do that, especially if you're like a clueless person like me that, never really had to do anything like that. And that concept was so foreign to me.
Yeah.
But I think what really helped me to do that, and I still like look at it in the same way now, I almost look at it as this is like a research. This is like a market research, right? Like again, and like kind of like going back to that time in my life, wasn't really sure what I wanted to do. So why not reach out to a bunch of people who've already been in my shoes? Usually MBA students, they come and get their MBA because they want to make a big change in their career. It's rarely that they start in one field, go and get an MBA, and then go back to do the kind of like exact same thing, but with like higher salary. Like it's usually not the story. So like these would be obviously like great people to connect with and talk to about their journey and kind of trying to figure out what they're doing, what they learned.
Yeah.
And that was huge for me. That was really huge. And this is kind of like I still do.
Yeah. I feel like a big part, like I got my MBA, I think it was 4 or 5, 6 years after graduating from undergrad. And I think that gap is so important, that you have some career experience, right? You grow up, you mature, you understand the context of things, and you go back of your own free will. It's not just kind of following, like you're saying, that path of the next step blindly. Like you go in there and you're more engaged and proactive and wanting to meet people and network, and you're just more open to that. I'm such a big advocate for not going straight into your MBA after your undergrad and like taking the time to work and start your career and then come back in. And to your point, you might want to do something totally different. So get your MBA for something totally different at that point. But you just have a different mindset.
You absolutely do. You absolutely do. Like I mean, when I was in grad school, I finally understood accounting.
Yeah, right. Because in undergrad, it's like
did not come easily to me in undergrad. But yeah, I think you do come with a completely different state of mind. You're also hopefully more thoughtful about connections that you make, like less about grades. Hopefully, of course, not everyone is like that.
Yeah.
But also, I don't know, I kind of saw it as this is my time to invest in myself. So when I came to grad school, I was already married. I was already a mom. So like, when will I ever get a chance to do something that is purely for myself?
Yeah.
And that is truly like a space for me to come and learn and meet a bunch of other people that are mostly way younger than me. Not mad about that.
Yeah.
But just like really change the environment. Right. Because again, like I was working in tech before. I was so used to being often the only woman in the room. Definitely, even if I wasn't the only one, definitely the youngest.
Yeah.
definitely the youngest, and to deal with those challenges. And it was honestly kind of nice to be the person that kind of seen a thing or two.
Yeah.
Again, like you're a mom, so you already have like a superpower of like, you know, how to manage time and all of that. Like everyone's freaking out about stuff and you're just
Yeah.
like, it's fine. It's fine.
That's
Trust
nothing.
me.
Look at
Trust me,
my
that's not
schedule.
hard.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm like, of course I can also make to that happy hour. I can also make that happy hour. Of course. Yeah, that's fine.
We make it work.
I'll just finish writing that group project like when I'm back at like 1 a.m. That's fine.
Yep.
We allocate our resources differently.
So true.
And there's the proportion, like the perspective that we have that's super useful. And again, also, I'm not going to lie, like having the work experience that I've had before, work at a pretty big company with like in two very cross-functional roles and have a pretty solid understanding already about like how the business works. I feel like I was in a really good position to kind of take a step back and like absorb and learn new things. Because like, again, like when you go to grad school, you for sure see people who with really different types of experiences. And some of them like have never been in like a management meeting or like were like anywhere near an executive, and just being able to know what it's like and be, you know, I used to present like top issues to VP R&D. He managed like 800 people like 3 times a week. I can handle the heat.
The class. Yeah. You know what? You're actually making me think. I think if I went back and did it again, it's not a regret, right? But if I went back and did it again, I'd probably wait even longer before I went back for my MBA. Like maybe the 4 or 5 years wasn't even enough because there's still so much. Like if I went back now, I mean, I would be exhausted, but but I think I would have such another, like even more like a engagement and just a different mindset, and it would not be as challenging after the, right? It's more, or sorry, it would be, but I'd be looking for new challenges versus the presenting wouldn't really scare me as much, right?
Yeah, exactly. And it's different type of challenges and it's different type of like engagement, right? Like I think it's just like how, I don't know, I really did see that like as a gift. Like this is my time to invest in myself. This is awesome. Like
this is why I love, like I could not go back for another degree. I couldn't do that to myself or my wallet at this point. But, and I have friends who keep going back, right? They like love it. They're addicted. They want like a doctorate. And I'm like, bless you. I could not do that. But I do love like what you and I were both talking about earlier too, is like going to events, right? And learning from presentations or like taking a course, like Pavilion has really awesome courses. So like doing that ad hoc versus like a whole degree. But I love that because then you can opt into the things that matter to you. I definitely am the nerdy person who like, I go to shows to learn, yes, to network, but also I'm excited about the content. I'm one of the people that does look at the agenda and sign up because of that.
I know, same. Yeah. And like I take notes. Yes.
Yeah.
Totally.
I'm like laptop out, my OneNote.
Yeah. And even like any kind of like, I think it also ties back into networking as well, because it's usually like you learn the best things or you get the best ideas from just talking to other people who are kind of dealing with similar-ish challenges to you.
Yes.
That's been at least my experience. And I remember, so like pre-COVID, when we talked about networking a little bit, so like even though I really started doing it more like after I moved here, like when I was in grad school and kind of after, like I would say like even in the last year since I opened my business and started to go off on my own and like not be in-house anymore, that was like a whole, I wouldn't even say it was a whole step up. It was it's a different building. And I remember like pre-COVID, we used to have like a product marketing meetup group here in Austin. It was before PMA even existed.
Yeah. Wow. I didn't realize PMA was so new.
Yeah, PMA is pretty new. It's like, I think around like 2019.
Oh, cool.
I'm much older. But yeah, so we would, and I remember like getting some really great ideas from that group, and we would have like monthly meetups in person. It was again pre-COVID, like it wasn't even a thing then to like do all these things virtually. And just like meeting more people in the Austin area that are doing the same thing as I was, and getting some really cool ideas from them. Like that was the first time that I even learned about like win-loss analysis. And I was
Yes.
determined to make it happen, even though I was working at a direct-to-consumer company, which is usually like not where you see win-loss. Win-loss is usually more like a SaaS B2B type of thing.
True.
But I was just determined to make it happen. And it was like one of the best exercises that I've done. And I honestly think because I was able to speak with so much passion and conviction about that, like years later even, it really helped me to get like other jobs.
Yeah.
Like now I just feel like, I don't know if it's a post-COVID thing or if it's just like LinkedIn, how much LinkedIn took off in the last few years, but just how people use that now, like not only to apply to jobs, basically. It's not just like your online resume like it used to be.
Yeah.
It's really to make connections and to branch out and to learn a lot of new things.
Agreed. It's like the ultimate B2B community, LinkedIn. As much as I'm hating their algorithm lately, the community is still amazing.
Yes, I agree. We all have our feelings and thoughts and frustrations.
Yeah, I don't get it, but it's okay. I don't have to. So you saw a woman, I think it was a woman presenting, and she was a product marketer, and you had like this light bulb moment. And then you went back for your MBA, I think after that, right? And focused and learned a lot more about product marketing.
So that was during the MBA when I saw her.
And then you knew. Very cool. So things clicked into place. So now that you transitioned into the product marketing world, and now your business is focused on competitive positioning. I want to dive into that because I want to like extract everything possible from your brain because it's a weakness right now on my team. So selfishly, but where do you begin when let's say there's a million different examples, but let's say there's two extreme scenarios, right? One, it's a newer company or they've just never had a product marketer before. So looking to hire that first person or to get consulting from you, where do you tell them to begin versus working with a company that's more robust and they've had a product marketing team for a while, like coming in and assessing things there? What are the two starting points for you?
I don't know if it's a good or a bad thing, but you would be surprised by how much sometimes the challenges are really similar. Sometimes, not all the times, but I've worked with companies that have zero product marketing, and I've worked with companies that have a team, but they just don't have the skill set or the relevant experience on that team to do some stuff. But for competitive positioning, and this is maybe also, like worth mentioning kind of like how I landed there. Is just because it's something that I saw so many companies not do.
Yes.
So everyone's talking about positioning and messaging and focus on features. No, focus on benefits. No, focus on outcomes. And like there's
and
all
that's
these
going
things.
back and forth now. The messaging piece, I feel like okay. But
And I will, before you ask, I'll just say it depends. That's the answer. It's always the answer.
I'm sure.
But for competitive stuff, I remember just kind of having or like seeing that firsthand when I was in-house and then when I was talking to a bunch of other people, that it seems like competitive intel is seen as super tactical. So you have a person doing competitive research. That person, if you don't have resources, maybe that can be an intern.
Yeah.
And people, when you say the word competitive research, they have different associations, right? Like for some people, it's a feature comparison thing. And for some of them, it's not. And for some is like what they say versus what we say and things like that. But whatever that is, you do that, and then you're supposed to make battle cards out of them, and that's it.
Yep.
And I'm like, this is such a huge missed opportunity. So when I remember, like when I was at the very beginning, when I just started at my last like in-house role, one of the first things that I had to do there was kind of like revamp the competitive intel and kind of like create battle cards.
Yeah.
And then I had that realization. I really don't like the format. I wasn't even like putting it into these words, but I was just looking for a way to make that knowledge or like that research, those insights more usable for people in sales. So it just made sense to tie that information back to like, what are the things that we're amazing at? And how can we like tie these two things together, right? So like, how can we say, okay, we are amazing at these 5 things. These are some competitors or status quo or some other competitive alternatives. They're not necessarily like other tools, but just like different ways of doing the same thing. So how do we like stack against like each of them with our distinct abilities? So like the things that we're amazing at, what can we say that if you're doing status quo, you're not getting these like 3 things. And if you're using that competitive, you're getting that like these 2 things, but not the other 3 things. And this just seemed like a better way for me to articulate to our sales team, okay, then this is what you should be talking about when you're in competitive situations. Like instead of giving you something, like a super long condensed document for you to memorize.
Yeah.
Like here's the levers basically that you should be pulling in each competitive situation that you're in. And that was kind of like how I started like thinking about that. And to go back to your original question, where would you start? I would even say like, don't start with the research at the company. Start with making sure that you know who your ICP is. And this sounds so basic, but again, like you would be surprised by how sometimes the definition can be just like not relevant or not recent anymore, or just very high level, like very superficial almost. And it's something that a lot of companies really struggle with, defining that ideal target audience. And especially if you're a company that you're selling something that somewhat like horizontal, you have more than one use case, then that can be also an internal struggle of like, okay, but like which one though of our best fit companies or use cases is like the best one? Like if we had to pick just one, which one is it? And it's something that for a lot of companies is kind of a hard question to answer. It's kind of hard for the exec team to decide on. Yes. And from what I saw, salespeople yearn for that definition. They need that. They want that definition so bad. It makes their life so much easier. And they are sometimes in a position when they ask for it, but no one's giving it to them because no one wants to decide, which sucks. But I think, again, like that's kind of the foundation. And it's something that I see companies that's been around for 10 years and companies that are kind of like newer, that are maybe just like, they just started selling like a year, 2 years ago. And now they're like, okay, we have enough customers to actually be able to figure out where's that like the best fit is.
Yeah.
But that kind of like, if you know that, it just makes everything else so much easier. Even like with competitive, it just gets so easier to focus. And again, focus on your ICP and what they care about. And again, like the specific things that they're trying to solve for and the specific solutions that they're even considering. Like if there is a company like what you do exactly, but they're selling to a completely different audience, it's like, great, that's your quick dismiss. Like this is like, it doesn't matter that they solve for, that they do the same thing. Their expertise, their experience, their audience is completely different. So let's look at them and keep them in mind and just, like make sure that we're looking at them and we know what they're up to, but it's not necessarily, where you would need to spend all of your resources.
Yeah.
And all of your effort, both in terms of sales attention and marketing dollars. Because if it's not the same audience, then
there's so many different directions I want to go. So one is, it's so true. I feel like they're the founders, right? Founders or C-suite, depending how big the company is. Oftentimes, not every time, oftentimes they're like, everybody can use our product, right? Like, let's keep a huge TAM. Let's see how big our TAM we can get. And that's kind of their mindset. And it's so hard for marketers to then market and go to market. I think it was this past week, Lena from Chili Piper, she posted something that was just on this and I saved it to go back to later. It was like, this is who our ICP is. And it was so long. It was like very detailed. It's not just like sales in B2B SaaS. That was like the tip of the iceberg. And then she went into like, this is exactly who we target. And then this and this and this. And I was like, this is beautiful. Like, you know exactly what you're looking for and what scenario. And they have this, but they don't have this. And it's just so cool. Like, I'm definitely wanting to apply that because it gives you focus, right? And then you can expand from there. It doesn't mean this is your entire, like you can only work with them. It's just ideal, right? And that's who you can.
And it's also not forever. For sure. And it's not forever, right? Like, and I think that's another pitfall of like ICP type of work is that even if you did the work and you have super solid idea of who that like audience is, you just kind of assume that it's not going to change, which is absolutely false.
You evolve.
Like it will change. It will change.
Yes.
And it might change if you launch something new, or it might change just like with time as your company like matures and evolves and maybe some adjacent audiences find out about you.
Yeah. New titles emerge, right? New
titles. Even like new competitors coming in.
True.
You know, I mean, things change all the time. I need to look up that like the post that you just mentioned. But I love that because it's funny that you mentioned that because I often say this is the one document that I think should be ridiculously long.
Oh, the ICP doc. Ooh.
I think, again, like being specific here is your friend. Like lean into like being specific.
Yeah.
When I hear companies saying, yes, we know our ICP, it's like customer support teams in companies in North America that have more than 500 employees and operations. I don't know, in the Philippines. I'm like, okay, that's so broad. Like this is it. Like that's not the ICP, right? It's not just about it's not just the firmographics. It's also right. It's like what technologies do they use, and like why do they use those? Like like there has to be like a why or pains, triggers, like what do they care about? What's going to cause them? Like what about all these things that we like, all these facts make them like a good audience for us? Like why does it make it urgent? And you really, again, like details and specifics are your best friend here, because when you have that, then it just becomes a lot more clear to figure out, okay, like product prioritization, this is what we should prioritize. This is what they care about. From the marketing point of view, like these are the topics that they care about, like, like in content that we're making, like this is where we should lean in. Even with like outreach and outbound, like this is, again, like these are the things, or like these are the triggers, right? Like instead of just looking at like intent data, like who's looking at my website, it's like, no, now you can find people who are in the exact specific situations, like the triggers that make them really be on the market for what you're trying to sell. And then you can go way more specific when you do that outreach, because you know the exact situation that they're in. It just makes everything else so much easier when you have a really clear definition of that.
Focus. When you go in to work with a new client, do you talk through the ICP and look at what they have and try to narrow that down? And how do you go about doing that? Is it by looking at closed won deals, closed lost deals, and or talking with their top customers by ARR? Like what nitty gritty, like tactical, how do you get started in fine tuning your ICP and making that doc 5 pages long?
So, I mean, do you know your ICP is for sure one of the first things that I ask. Just to know what type of engagement we're going to have, right? Because if we're just going to do competitive positioning, then great. But like, you have to know your ICP. If you don't know your ICP, then we have to, like, this is a different conversation, because we really can't do that before we know the super basic, important piece of the puzzle. That's kind of like the foundation for everything else.
Talya, I feel like you should start a game show called Do You Know Your ICP? Like I'm picturing that like a LinkedIn live with you once a month, once a week, where you like talk to someone and talk them through their ICP and get it to be way more granular. I feel like I would watch that.
Oh my God, I love that idea.
Do
I
it.
love that idea. Oh my God. Okay.
We'll take it
I'll
offline.
give you the royalties. Yes. We'll collaborate on that. I love that. It's kind of like Squid Game. I feel like it's gonna turn into.
Right.
But
Totally. Like very
it's
defensive,
like,
but LinkedIn loves
and
battles,
yes,
right?
it's
So,
like,
hey.
and LinkedIn loves battles these days. Yeah. Speaking of competitive, yes, LinkedIn does love
Yes.
battles these days.
Yes.
So to your other question, like, how do you go about it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a combination of a lot of these things that you talked about, right? So I think that's one of the things that a lot of people think about when they think of ICP, and for a good reason, right? Because you can learn a lot from talking to the customers that you have and from
Yeah.
those that you lost to. A couple of other things that I really like doing is talking to, again, like if we're talking on the like interview front, talk to people, especially customer facing teams that work at the company. So people from sales, customer success, customer support, mostly. Kind of depends on the company, maybe product too, but like these people that speak to customers and to prospects every day, they usually have amazing insights that no one captures. So if you talk to an experienced AE and ask them, what makes you, like when you are talking to a prospect, even like for the first time, what makes you feel like they're going to be a great fit? They know.
Yeah.
They know. And it's not necessarily, and I kind of leave those questions like really open ended, right? Like it's not necessarily about a specific industry. Like that's where you get the really good stuff, like the triggers and the things like that, because they can often tell almost immediately whether someone's going to be a good fit. Not necessarily if they're going to close, but if they're even a good fit. Same for success implementation. Like when you start implementation, what makes you feel like when you're going through that process with a new client, like how do you know, or like how can you tell if it's going to be a successful one? And again, like they usually tell, and they have different things that they look at. And if you like, the more people internally that you talk to, the more insights you get. And then lastly, I think, and that's something that I'm kind of surprised, but I'm learning that not a lot of people do that, is look at their CRM data, which is, to me, that's kind of shocking because that's kind of like the easiest thing almost, right? Yeah. Like you don't even need anyone. You could just like pull up a report from Salesforce, as easy as that is. I mean, it's painful, but it's easy enough.
Exactly. Like I'd switch over data pulling from Salesforce.
Like starting to sweat a little bit. But I mean, yeah, like don't look too far back, maybe like take a, kind of use judgment in like how far you're looking at information. Maybe there's, again, like products like really changed, and like maybe you want to look at specific things, but look at things, again, like these firmographics that we talked about, like roles, use cases, or products, or like land versus expand versus look at expansions also, by the way, like something that is so important.
Yeah.
When you're looking at ICP type of data, sales velocity, ARR, AC, like all these things. So it's not just about the win rates, but it's also about like how easy it was to seal a deal on that one.
Yeah.
Who needs to be involved? So these things. And I think sometimes I found that if you start with the data, it might even be easier to start seeing some patterns, and you start forming some hypotheses. And then when you go and talk to people from sales or success, you might be able to, like accept these super open-ended questions, also ask them some specifics about, like, tell me about this deal, and to kind of like dive deeper into that rather than asking them about every single deal that they closed last year, which might be a lot. So also kind of use the data to have better discussions internally then.
Yes. So something that I'm realizing as you're speaking now is that how important asking the right questions is, because you're saying like, I wrote these down because I'm definitely going back to my teams and asking these questions. But for AEs on the sales side, what makes you feel like it's a good fit? And then CS team during implementation, what makes you feel like it's going to be a successful implementation? I love those questions. And then even on the sales side, right? Like the questions they are asking on the calls of the prospect, pulling that information. So all of like asking the right questions at every single phase of the prospect, of the customer internally, just gets you the right data, like qualitative and quantitative, to be able to go deeper on this ICP. I'm just realizing how important journalism skills are here across the board.
Yeah. And it's funny because I don't know that it's talked about often enough, but really like being curious and being a critical thinker are such important qualities for product marketers. I feel like when I was in product, like you would, like these were like, you would hear like nonstop about these things, like endlessly almost about how it's important to like have those skills.
Yeah.
Less so in product marketing. And I'm not sure why, because I think there is more overlap with these two roles than people want to admit. Product managers, product marketers,
Yes.
they definitely lean into different strengths and, do things differently. It's not the same skill set, but there is a lot of overlap as well.
Yeah. To me, it's kind of equivalent to sales marketing. Like it has to be that close of a relationship, a partnership, and you have to fit together like a puzzle piece, right? So like the head of sales, head of marketing have to complement each other and work together and align in order for go-to-market to work. And then the same, there's also CS in there and many other layers and product, but product and product marketing have to also fit together in that way. And it can look so different at each company, right?
Yeah. And that's the challenge. But yeah, because I think the dynamic between the two is very important for both of their successes, right? And maybe some product managers have no idea what a product marketer does. I can totally see that.
Agreed.
But honestly, I'm not sure that product marketers really do know what product managers do either. So I think that there's definitely some more room there for closer collaboration, because there is you have to have that strong relationship to be successful. Like there's so much overlap, right? Like even like we talked about competitive before, but like competitive, sometimes it sits in product, sometimes it sits in product marketing, sometimes competitive is its own function, but it's so relevant to all of ththese teams. It's really important. So it's not just a thing that marketing needs to know so they can, again, make battle cards for sales. No, it's something that's really important for product managers to be really like well-versed in the market itself. And they need to know what's happening and they need to know how companies approach the same problems that they are. Even if it's a completely different approach, that's fine.
Yeah.
But it's something that they need to keep in mind as they're prioritizing features.
Yes, exactly. That feedback loop is so important, just going back and forth. I feel like there's so much more that I want to pick your brain on. I feel like this time flew by. Maybe we'll have to have a second one, Talya, and we go deep into competitive intel. But in the meantime, I have one more wrap-up question for you. But before we get to that, where can everybody, if they want to find like more ironically, on competitive intelligence and competitive positioning and everything that you work on, where's the best place for them to follow for like content and advice and guidance there for you?
Oh, yeah. So, there are some other communities, but yeah, I'm on LinkedIn. You can find me on LinkedIn. I have a website, downtoat.co. I have a resources section there that I do my best to keep updated. And you can reach out to me there as well. But other than that, there's a couple of other really cool communities for competitive. There's Healthy Competition, which is a super small community for competitive. And it's a really fun one, a very engaged community. And there's as part of the big Product Marketing Alliance, there's also a sub community that's dedicated for competitive intel as well there.
Cool. Oh, that's awesome. I'll be checking those out. I will try to include the links to those in the show notes. I'll also send you the link, Talya, and put in show notes the link to Alina's post where she was talking about Jilly Piper's ICP and breaking that down, because it's just really cool. So I'll share that with you and in the show notes. My last question for you today, only because we're out of time, but I, again, would love to have a part 2 with you. If you could go back to young Talya, just starting out in project management, knowing everything you know now, right? what would, or actually even before then, industrial engineer, Talya, what would you tell your younger self, knowing everything you know now?
Brace yourself.
Right?
Yeah, for sure. I think I will tell her a couple of things. So, and this might sound contradicting. It is a-okay to say no to things, but also at the same time, for more of a professional development advice, also sometimes embrace the yes, even if you have
Yeah.
no idea what's happening and you don't know what you're
Yes.
doing. That's kind of how I felt when I was transitioning from being a PMO to product, but it was the best. And I've kind of,
Yeah.
I think every time we feel slightly uncomfortable about something is usually a good sign.
Yes.
So embrace it. Like, don't wait until you're like 100% ready to do something. It's also like me a year ago when I started my own business. I was like, I don't even know if I'm going to like it, but I'm going to try. And worst case, we'll go back to
Yes.
working in-house somewhere.
Exactly.
But
That's the thing. We're
it's
never
been such
stuck.
a growth journey. Yes, exactly. It's like
Yeah.
everything is reversible. Even tattoos, by the way, everything is
Yeah.
reversible. It's fine.
Right. You can just keep moving, try something else,
Yeah,
pivot, right?
exactly. Like,
Yeah.
don't dwell. Like, just it's okay. And again, kind of like going back to like the very beginning of our conversations, like just about networking. I wish I've done that when I just got started. I even wish that I did what I'm doing now, or like what I have been doing in the last year. All these years that I worked full time, like even here, like after we moved here and I like discovered networking, but no, like there is, I'm looking back at like the last year and what putting myself out there gave me, and it was so much. So like, don't necessarily be like, rely on your boss or your employer to work on your career development. Just like maybe like reserve a little bit of time. Just I know it's hard. I know it's so hard to try to do a really good job and also have some time for yourself and your family, but reserve some time and some of that energy to develop yourself, even if you're working full time.
Yes. It's so important. Your personal network, your personal brand, your personal career, like your career, not just the position you're in now, because that's one stop on the road of your whole career. So true. I love that. Thank you so much, Talya. I have a ton of notes and I'm going to put a lot of stuff in the show notes, but thank you so much for shedding some light on your journey and competitive positioning, which I love that because I always think of competitive intelligence, and yes, battle cards comes to mind first. I will try to switch that into competitive positioning, but thank you so much for sharing with us today. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me. This was such a fun conversation. And it's like no one ever asks me about these things. So
yay. Love that. And everyone, DM her. Congratulate Talya on her 1 year with her company. So down to a T. So congrats, happy anniversary. And we'll stay tuned. We'll have a part 2 at some point. We'll get that on the books. Thank you everyone for listening. And remember to share with a friend, give us 5 stars if you think we deserve it, and share with a friend, write a review. It all helps us get in front of more women in B2B marketing. Thanks, everyone. See you next time. Bye, Talya.